Okay, I just got out of actually seeing Captain Marvel. I'm trying to record this right now while things are still sort of fresh in my mind. This will be spoiler free. I will talk about things that happened in the trailer though, so there will be some things discussed, but nothing that wasn't associated with that. So, for example, Samuel Jackson's in the film. Hopefully, you didn't think that that was a spoiler. There were lots and lots of tickets available when I got my tickets a couple of hours before the sessions, probably about three quarters of tickets left then, but it was about 90% full when I actually watched the film, so a lot more people had purchased tickets, but it still wasn't a sellout. Most of the people in there were couples. There was a man and a woman together, and there were a few groups of guys or men, but generally it was couples in there, so it was probably about 45% female, 55% male, the actual audience. So first things first, the cat. The cat was getting raved about in the reviews that were released before the embargo date. The cat, if you like cats, and there were people in the audience that did, there was a lot of cat ladies there that squealed with delight with the cat. They love the cat. I don't know if those people would like a superhero movie, but the cat did have a fair bit of appeal to some of the people in the audience. I thought a lot of the stuff with the cat was pretty stupid. The cat does play a bit of a role in the film, but in general, I thought it was fairly dumb, and it seemed like it was pandering to cat ladies, and it worked. It worked. There were people that did enjoy the cat, so it was probably a good move putting it in. Was it the best thing in the film? Um, I'd say it might be the second best thing in the film. And I didn't really like it that much. That's a bit harsh, but um, yeah, the cat wasn't good for me for most of the film. There are some funny bits associated with the cat. There was a fair bit of laughter. I did laugh at some of it, but I thought the tone of it was wrong. I thought it just shouldn't have been in the film, but a lot of people in the audience disagreed with that. They liked the cat. I've got the list of the cast and crew open on IMDb so I don't get anyone's name wrong. Ben Mendelsohn was really good. He's the guy that played Krennic in Rogue One. He was really good in this film. He was funny as well. There was a few characters that were fairly funny and fairly well written. But yeah, Ben Mendelsohn was definitely the standout part of the film, so I think he was better than the cat. He certainly added a lot to the film by having him in there. Jude Law, I don't think was on any of the trailers, but he has a fairly biggish role in the film. He does a fairly good job. There's nothing wrong with what he does. And Samuel Jackson's in a lot of the film. If you cut out some of the Captain Marvel scenes, some of the Bree scenes, which I'm sure some people will call for, you could nearly call it a Nick Fury origin story and just have it starring Samuel L. Jackson. He was in the film an awful lot. Having said that, I thought it was good, but it wasn't Nick Fury from the present day. So I know it's based about 25 years in the past. He played basically a completely different character. He was a comedic relief. He was sort of bumbling, although I'm guessing he's supposed to be 65 now, so 40 back then. So it's not like he was playing a teenager or anything. So I thought the character was good, but it wasn't Nick Fury from all of the other films. It was a very different Nick Fury. It was a younger Nick Fury, so maybe that's perfectly fine. But it was a completely different Nick Fury, which again I thought he was good, but it just wasn't the same character. As if it was completely written by someone else. Just it was a different character. It was basically Samuel L. Jackson playing a different guy in the film, and it was good, but it was not Nick Fury. This guy just happened to be called Nick Fury. The feminism or social justice or whatever you want to call it, there's not really any extra in the film that's not in the trailers. If you didn't like the trailers because of that, you'll probably hate the film. But all there was basically packed into those trailers, and it really looked like they were trying to push that angle. I don't know why. I'm sure it's angered more people and don't want to see the film rather than turned on to some sort of new cat lady demographic that probably won't see the film. But yeah, there wasn't really a lot of girl powery / feminism pushed that you hadn't already seen in the trailers. Now, obviously, the main character's a female, but that was it really. And in no way does she act like a female, so it's very difficult to say that it was a pro-female film. She basically attempts to do what I think is basically a rip-off of Arnold Schwarzenegger from the Terminator films, so I guess I can get more into negatives in a little bit. Positive, what more was positive about the film? The plot was quite good. There are potholes, there are things wrong with the plot. One of the alien races can shapeshift. Hopefully, that's not really a spoiler, and so that does obviously bring up a lot of problems with being able to shapeshift or not shapeshift or who's shapeshifting. So that element is probably always going to have issues. But there are plot problems. There are some questions as to why a few things happened and so on. But in general, the plot was fairly good, and there's a little bit of a twist which was good. So the story in general was quite good, especially for an MCU film. I mean, what happened in Iron Man, the original Iron Man, he gets locked in a cave, he makes a suit, he escapes, he makes a better suit, his business partner makes an even bigger suit, and he defeats him. I mean, this film probably has a better plot than what you could argue was in the original Iron Man. The film's based in 1995, or maybe you could say it's between 1989 and 1995. It's basically 1995, so there's a lot of callbacks to 1995. I won't go into too many if you might consider them spoilers, but the music's from that era. The music's very sort of girly friendly, or I don't know, girl power-ish. There were no Spice Girls in it. I really thought Spice Girls would be a track on it, but yeah, there's a fair few callbacks to the 90s. There were no children in the viewing I saw that I noticed. I wasn't turning backwards to have a look at the children, as some wacko pedos on Twitter have been saying that's what they want to do. But I didn't notice anyone there with their kids. There weren't any families at this particular viewing. But I'd say the film itself is geared towards someone that was alive in the 90s, and probably a white female, or perhaps a feminist white female. But again, the feminism really wasn't that overt in this, I don't think. The trailers really exaggerated. Not to say that there were bits in the trailers that weren't in the film, but it's really just, I'd say, at the start of the film, it's there, yeah, you notice it, but I mean, why it was even there is crazy. I don't understand why they even bothered. There's not enough to keep the social justice warriors happy, so the amount that's in it just makes you notice that, oh, is this going to keep going on? No, and it didn't. So it was a very strange choice to even put any of it in at all, really. So having said that, I'd say the film's geared towards a 30 to 50-year-old white female. That would be the general target audience they're going for. They're obviously going for everyone as well, the general audience, but I think that's what a lot of the nods really for. Maybe like a 35 to 45-year-old white females. That would be what I would say is the target demographic they want to go for. Now, obviously, that's not a huge demographic of superhero film moviegoers, but that seems to be what they pandered a little bit to. The film also reminded me a little bit of Rush Hour with Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. This sort of story, or I don't know what you'd say, kind of relationship between Samuel Jackson and Brie Larson. Nowhere near as good. Rush Hour, there's good chemistry between Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. That was funny. So, because they're both from the 90s, it just had that kind of vibe to me that it was trying to be a little bit Rush Hour-y. But nowhere near as good as Rush Hour. I also thought it was a little bit like, I think the film's called A Last Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis and Samuel Jackson in it. There was some sort of similarities there, especially since I guess you got Samuel Jackson in both. But, and I guess it's not really a spoiler since the trailers goes through it, that Brie Larson or Captain Marvel doesn't really have a memory. And in The Last Kiss Goodnight, that was the general gist of that movie, that Gina Davis had lost a memory and then she sort of slowly recovers it. So there's some similarities there. I would say that The Last Kiss Goodnight's a better film than Captain Marvel, and I would say that Rush Hour is a far superior film than Captain Marvel. The film wasn't terrible. It's obviously had some money spent on it. I think the budget was $170 million. I didn't notice any boom mics in frame. I didn't notice any crew walking into the shot. The audio seemed synced up. So, the film is by no stretch of the imagination a bad film. It's just not good. It's not a good film. Anyone that describes the film as great is just a liar. There is absolutely no way anyone could say this is a great film. You might be able to say it's good. I don't think so, but it's not terrible. Okay, it's fairly mediocre. It's nowhere near as bad as I thought the film would be. So it's much, much, much better than I thought it would be. But the main issue with the movie, and there's a few, it's hard to really pinpoint what's wrong, because it has all the elements that are there. You've got the sci-fi stuff. There's some battles. There's some fighting. It's associated with the MCU. Yeah, all the things are there for this to be good or great, depending on what you think that the MCU films are. If you think they're great, this could be great. This film could be great. It's not, though. Something falls flat, and a lot of it, I think, is Captain Marvel herself. I am curious to see what actual reviews from paid reviewers actually say, if they're too gutless to be able to put any criticism in for Captain Marvel. But Captain Marvel is not fantastic in this film, which is obviously not good news because the film is on Captain Marvel. I don't think Brie Larson is the issue. I've seen her in interviews and she can emote and she can act dumb or she can smile and she can laugh. I assume the writing is terrible for her. I don't know why the writing's terrible for her, because the writing for some of the other characters is quite good. And there was a fair few times people in the audience, including myself, laughed. Not ever at anything that Captain Marvel did, and that may be because she's not supposed to be funny, so that's fine if she's not the comedic relief. But she didn't really come off as well written, I don't think. Maybe it's not well directed. Maybe they picked very bad cuts off it and it was the editor's problems. Now, I did have a little look beforehand to see what the deal was with who the writers were and who the director was and the editors. And I kind of thought, was this just purposely written by a whole pile of women and they got a female director who doesn't know what she's doing in just to go, hey, it's all women? And it kind of looks like that is exactly what they did. The directors are actually two directors. It has a male and a female. I don't know any of the films they've ever made before, but the box office for those films are basically nothing. So they've never had a large opportunity to make a large box office film. And there was another writer that made the screenplay. The only thing she had ever written was Tomb Raider. I'm not aware of Tomb Raider being classified as being a good film. And there are another two females associating creating the story. So it's very female driven, and not to say that females can't write stories, of course they can, not to say female can't direct, but the direction here and the writing here I think was completely subpar, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a diversity hire and not that, oh, these people actually have some merit, because it does fall flat, but especially for Captain Marvel it falls flat. So the dialogue written for pretty much everyone else, I think, was better than the dialogue that was written for Captain Marvel. And again, I don't think it was probably Brie Larson's delivery. The actual writing for her is quite poor. Some of the special effects were a little bit subpar. Nothing was really jarringly bad, but there were quite a few bits that weren't good. I can only assume, because there's plenty of money there in the budget, I can only assume that all of their main CGI people are working on the Infinity movie, or sorry, the Endgame movie. So maybe there's a personnel issue at Disney. They don't have enough, or at least Marvel, they don't have enough high quality CGI people, and they've put the B team on this. And I wouldn't really be surprised if they didn't do that, but it just seems like a big wasted opportunity where they've bothered to put in a female lead into the film. So there's been this whole hubbub, oh wow, oh my god, you finally got a female actress in a film. But then they've not bothered to really give it the top-notch CGI, and I'm assuming they've not given the top-notch writing or the top-notch directing. Now, yeah, it looks like they've tried to also go, let's just get some women in the writing as well. But most of the dialogue in a lot of the Marvel films is quite well done, and some of the dialogue in this is quite well done, just not for the Captain Marvel character. The Red Letter Media guys, on one of their Plinkett reviews, I think it was on The Phantom Menace, they have a little bit where they get a group of people together and they basically ask them, can you describe these characters without using their jobs or their descriptions? And they go, Han Solo, and they get some responses like, oh, he's a scoundrel, he's a smuggler, he's a wise ass, and so on. Luke Skywalker, oh, he's naive, he's got a lot of hope, and so on. And then they go Qui-Gon Jinn, and the people just look at the camera and go, he's got a beard on it as a description, and they go, what was Natalie Portman's character called? Padme Amidala, and same thing, they're like, she wears costumes, or I don't know. So I would say the same thing is here with Captain Marvel. If you say, well, describe Captain Marvel without actually saying, what are her powers and what does she physically look like, what is her job? And I don't know, I don't have any way to describe her. Her character doesn't have any character. That's a terrible thing to say. She has superpowers. She blows stuff up. She doesn't really have any clear motivation, although she's generally good. I suppose she wants to do the right thing. That's her general motivation. Maybe revenge is a little bit of her motivation, but she has no real character traits. She's just someone who we're told has actually come through adversity, but we're really told that we don't see her go through any adversity at all. It's just basically the stuff you see in the trailer. Her as a little girl, she falls off a bicycle, she falls off a go-kart, she falls off a rope, and which is ridiculous to use that because, I mean, they're using the phrase, if you fall down, you'll get back up again. But they're literally using it in the film. They're just having her fall onto the ground. They're not actually having some sort of adversity that causes her difficulties and she metaphorically gets back off the ground. No, they just go, no, look, she actually fell in the dirt, and look, she stood up after she got in the dirt. It's such pathetic writing. It's so terrible. As far as any kind of story arc for Captain Marvel, I mean, she doesn't really end up anywhere different than she starts, other than she didn't have her memories, and hopefully it's not really a spoiler. She gets her memories back during the film. She doesn't progress from any point. She's not like, oh, she's weak and then she gains this power and then someone beats her up and so on. No, she's strong from the absolute start of the film, and she gets stronger. Her powers are never explicitly defined, but she seems unkillable, unstoppable. She's got ridiculous power. I'd assume she could probably just blow up a planet, so she's basically like a Death Star. She can blow anything up. She can do all kinds of stuff. She can breathe in space. She's really just ridiculously overpowered, which again makes her very difficult to write for. She has no real weaknesses. Maybe there'll be a Marvel Girl Kryptonite, or sorry, a Captain Marvel Kryptonite, or something invented just to make it up. But I personally don't like Superman. I think Superman's a pathetic character. He's just what can you do to him? I don't think he's very interesting. And I would say that this is basically people trying to make a female Superman without without the charm and style. Yeah, it's difficult to get into really anything else without touching spoilers. There are two scenes after the credits. I won't go through them. It's really hard to think about positive things, and I think I'm making the film sound a lot worse than it actually is. The film isn't terrible. The main character isn't compelling. I know that this film will be defended by social justice warriors and say, oh my god, you can't criticize her because she's a woman. No, I think you can criticize everyone equally, and it's not a well done part. If they make a sequel, which I'm sure they will do a sequel, unless they kill her off in Endgame, which I really don't think they will, she'll probably get better. I would think that they'll get someone that's competent to write for the part. Now, I'm not really familiar with this iteration of the character from the comics. Maybe this is true to the comics. Maybe the comic character has no personality at all. Maybe that's why it's not a very popular comic. But I don't know. So I don't know if this is a good rendition of her or not. But there's just nothing here. That's the only criticism. She's not poorly played. It's not like anything's really bad. It's just nothing. There's nothing there. There was a part where she looked like she was tearing up, and I thought, oh wow, they're going to actually have some emotion here. And then it didn't, and it made me wonder, did they actually cut to a take the way she didn't cry? And there is some version of this out there where she was actually showing some emotions. Now, she does smile in some scenes. I was acutely aware of looking for it because there were some crazy articles saying she never smiles. As a person, Brie Larson doesn't smile. She does smile in the film. She tries to crack a few jokes. She tries to be sort of snarky and sarcastic, but it didn't work for me. It fell completely flat. Her character was the worst character in the film, which is not good when she's the star of the film. But there were other characters that were quite well written, so I don't understand how how something like that happens. That the main character is actually the worst character in a film. So again, the film will probably appeal to people that like cats. As dumb as that sounds, the cat, the cat was good compared to a lot of things in the film. It'll probably appeal to white females. There just isn't enough of that though, really, to make them happy. I think the film will get a lot of criticism from social justice warriors because it really looks to me like Disney isn't pushing a social agenda with this film. It looks like they're giving into criticism and saying, fine, we'll do one and that'll shut you up, and then we'll be able to get back to just making some movies. I know a lot of people might hope that that's actually what they've done here, but that's what it felt to me. It didn't feel like they put an effort into this. They've just said, well, we'll do it, and it sort of tokenizes it. They've just said that we've now got a token female with their own movie role, and I guess if it fails, they can just go out and say, well, sexist made it fail. And if it does fail, well, they're not really deeply invested in the character anyway at this stage, so who cares? Personally, I think a Black Widow film probably would have done a lot better. The character's already established. I also like the person that plays the Wasp. I think she's a far more interesting character than Captain Marvel, and she could probably have her own film as well. So I think they have plenty of females in the Avengers that could have their own films, but this character here, the way that it was written, the way it was portrayed, the way it was edited or directed, or maybe the way it was acted, I didn't think it was good at all. It's not terrible. There's just really nothing to it. It's bland. Maybe that's the best word. It's bland. I know some people have described her as watching a plank of wood. That was Brie Larson. I don't think Brie Larson's really to blame here. She might be. I don't know. Maybe this was the best performance they can get out of her. But I doubt it. I don't think so. It seems very strange. There's no real risks taken. It really looks like they've said we need to not offend social justice warriors. We're going to make a film with a female in it, but we cannot offend social justice warriors. We don't care what anyone else says. Don't offend them. We don't want the rage from them on Twitter. We don't want them to burn us in their witch burnings. Just don't offend them. Is she allowed to smile? No, don't make her smile. That makes it too feminine. Can we put some makeup on it? No, that'll make it beautiful. That'll annoy all of the ugly social justice warriors. Can we give her a figure form uniform? No. I mean, she is wearing a rubbery uniform. It's not figure fitting, and she probably doesn't quite have the figure of like a Black Widow to pull off that look anyway. So, did she have a love interest? No. That would mean her only power is through sex, or I don't know. She's too feminizing. She can compete in a man's world as a man. It looks like they're just scared of annoying people. They don't want to annoy social justice warriors. That's how the film felt to me. It didn't feel so much, here's a feminist propaganda piece to brainwash people. That may be how they try to market it, maybe not. It felt more like, oh my god, we don't want these people to rage on it. Just don't have the social justice warriors complain, please. Just don't put this in. Don't have a smile. Don't have a cry. Don't have a flirt. Don't wear a dress. There's no dresses. We can't do anything like that. She's basically not a female at the end of the day. She's very androgynous. She has no emotions. C-3PO's face emotes more than what she's doing in a lot of the scenes. She does smile a little bit though, so not quite that bad. But she's basically androgynous. She is sexless. She is emotionless. She's not a character I think anyone would really find compelling. And I know people will defend this film because they think this is some sort of political battle and that they're on her side. No, this is a film made by a multi-billion-dollar corporation trying to reap money, and just like all the other films, there is no political battle here, I don't think, and I really don't think there's a feminist agenda exactly running through it. I think it's more they're in fear of criticism, and maybe not because they think these people won't pay for tickets. I think they know the social justice warriors basically don't have money and don't do things that are enjoyable. I think they just don't want the rage, and maybe not so much from a business point of view, but from a personal point of view. The people that run Marvel, the people that run Disney, they're probably in circles of friends with some of these social justice warriors, and they probably just don't want the grief from that end of things. But complete speculation from me. I have absolutely no idea. So, is the film terrible? No, it's not terrible. Is the film good? I don't think it rises to the level where you could call it good. Is it the worst film in the MCU? I think it is, but I also think there's an argument you could make that it's better than the first two Thor films. It just depends on whether you like Thor or not. It could be better than the first Captain America film, depending on whether or not you like Captain America. I wouldn't really want to be bothered debating whether it's better than some films I think are pretty bad. So maybe it's better than a bad film. maybe not. I think it is the worst film in the MCU, but I could see an argument that maybe it's the fourth worst. I think people that like Marvel will go and see this film. I don't think anyone will watch it twice. The film, there's no reason to go and see the film again. So people may want to watch it. They may think they're missing out on something for Endgame. The film's based in 1995. It has absolutely nothing to do with Endgame. It has nothing to do with the Avengers. It's just her meeting young Nick Fury, as is made evident in all kinds of information already available. But yeah, Marvel fans will probably see the film no matter what. I don't think too many people see the film twice. So thanks for watching, and I might look at doing a spoiler version of this while I can still actually remember some of the film.